Welcome to this presentation on this Wednesday afternoon. Thank you for joining us. It's a real privilege and pleasure to have you with us. Just want to say those of you that have already joined, nice to have you here. Come in nice and early. We're going to do a quick introduction of our customer relations manager. She's going to introduce herself, and then we're going to get straight into the presentation. Now, we're going to be recording this for the simple reason that tonight we'll put it up onto YouTube, and then you'll be able to watch it, and or any colleagues that would need to see the presentation or like to see the presentation will be able to review it as well. I'm going to go through the material or the information quite quickly, and for that reason, please be patient with me if I go a bit fast. Once again, you can go and watch it this evening. So with that in mind, thank you for responding to the invitation. You got an invitation in some sort of digital format that said we have our Black Friday special that's come up. We do this every single year. And the Black Friday special is unusual this year in as much as there is an October component and a November component. And we'll explain each one of these things to you individually. So having said that, Intra was started by Penny and myself. Penny's my business partner. She's my wife. And as you heard, or probably have heard, that Natalie's my daughter. And we started this business with the primary objective of assisting people to set themselves up as trainers, health and safety trainers, either within companies or health and safety trainers operating on their own. So we'll be talking about various aspects of this, and obviously one of the things that you may land up doing is wanting to ask questions. So may I ask that you hold your questions right to the end? The objective would be that you jot them down, jot your questions down, and then we'll go off recording, and we'll open the microphones, and you can ask lots and lots of questions right at the end. So it'll be a real pleasure to be able to do that with you and for you. I am happy to say that I've been in the health and safety world for probably 35 years. I previously worked for NOSA, and then I set up a training company called Intra-Train, and Intra-Train with Cape Town, Durban, Joburg, PE. We had about 20 staff members, used to travel the country extensively, and we started it during the time of the old Factories Act. Some of you may remember the Factories Act, others probably don't. But then the Factories Act morphed into the Machinery and Occupational Safety Act, and that meant we had to change our training material, change our thinking. And then, of course, the Machinery and Occupational Safety Act, or MOS Act, morphed into the Occupational Health and Safety Act as we've got it now. So I've been throughout all these different phases. I've known almost every single one of the chief inspectors individually. They know me, I know them. And Natalie and I just recently met the new chief inspector, Miss Millie Raters. And it's a real privilege to be part of that. We're also members of Saiosh, that's the South African Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, and we're corporate members. And this year, to my absolute pleasure, I was invited to be the chairman of the Saiosh conference once again. So that's a little bit of background and involvement. There's a lot more about that I can share with you. But having said that, I want to get into the presentation as quickly as possible. So we know that the Occupational Health and Safety Act requires that training be done. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One of which is incidents are really very expensive. And we know that in the South African context, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people are injured, and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of rands, are lost as a result of incidents and accidents in the workplace. Now, having said that, the Department of Employment and Labor, they monitor it, and you know that they govern the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and we often warned or cautioned to say to people, this is criminal legislation. If you don't do it, you could land up in court. Now, that's one of the things that we say. We want to keep people out of court, and we certainly want to keep people out of hospital. Now, that's the one reason, and it could be economic, or it could be just that you want to comply with the legislation. The other reason is obvious, because people are people, and we want them to go home to their families in the evenings. And we know for a fact that these injuries and or diseases that occur are literally stifling people's growth, people's potential, and of course affecting them, their personal economy, and the country's economy. In fact, just a bit of a story here. If you look at the x-rays at the bottom, you'll see the x-ray of a hand with an amputated finger, then a spine, and then some lungs, and then, of course, sadly, we know that people die. But the spine is mine. That's what my spine looked like after I broke my back. And while it wasn't an occupational health and safety issue, per se by work, it was definitely a safety issue. And I did something which was really, really unfortunate. And I landed up in bed for 2 years. I was a cripple, and now I'm walking. Hallelujah. There we go. That's enough of that. Let's just move straight into it. You probably came along as a result of the invitation saying, I would like to do this either as my own company and or a department within your organization where you want to provide occupational health and safety training. So we'll be talking about this from a perspective of a business opportunity. And to lay the foundation, I'm sure you all know Section 8 of the Occupational Health and Safety Act, or OSA, as we commonly call it. You know that it says here that the employer must establish the hazards attached to the work performed. It says that the employer must identify the precautionary measures to be taken. And then it says the employer must provide information, instruction, training, and supervision. Now, as a business plan, this is exactly what we do. We assist employers identify the hazards, write the precautionary measures, and then provide the information, instruction, and training. If you're thinking of getting into the health and safety training world, this is the foundation of everything that you'll be doing. And that means that you have the Department of Employment and Labor on your side from a marketing perspective. It then carries on in Section 13, which is the duty to inform. We know that it says that the employer must cause every employee. That's really amazing. That's the size of the market that you'll be dealing with, every employee. Then it says that after the information, instruction, and training, the employee must be made conversant. And included in all of this information, instruction, and training, you need to include, or the employer needs to include, the precautionary measures to be taken. Now, I start off with this by saying most health and safety courses are not risk specific and do not contain the precautions that the employer has established for the employee's specific risks that they're exposed to. That's interesting. And once again, it's a wonderful opportunity if you're going to get into the training business. Now, we do know as well that the legislation talks about various levels. So you just see now, it says conversant, which means the person after the session needs to be able to talk about. And then it says, how do we know this person is capable? And we know that there is a definition of competent person. I'm sure if you've been involved with SACA or SETA or NQF or QCTO or something like that, you'll hear this thing called a competency certificate, competency. But that word competency is not a SACWA word, it's an OSA word. It comes out of the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And we need to know what it is that the person must be or do to be regarded as competent. Please have a look at that little section over there. It says, means a person who is in respect to the work or task to be performed, the required knowledge, training, and experience. Okay, then it carries on, and it talks about the NQF Act. And then it says finally, and that employee is familiar with the Act and the applicable regulations. So how often is it that we run a training program or attend a training program and the section on the legislation is minimal, not much? Okay, so we see it clearly in the legislation, but where do we find that? We find it in the regulations. So we've got the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and then we've got the regulations. So which regulations do we find it in? Competency is found in first aid. I'm sure you know that. That's the General Safety Regulation, Regulation 3. We find it in the ergonomics regulation. It talks about competency, but strangely enough, it's only the risk assessor that needs to be competent, not the employee. Strange, in any case, that's just wording. We find it in the driven machinery regulation, and we find it working at heights. That's it. Unless it's elsewhere. Now, there are other regulations where it might be. So let's have a look at some of these, such as the major hazard installation regulation. Now, for many people, they've never read it, never seen it. It's not relevant. It is there. And only if it's there do you have to have competent people. Only if it applies to you. Then, of course, there's the hazardous chemical agents regulation. And it's one of these questions of, does that apply to you or not? Or your employer, or your client? The hazardous biological regulation, the commercial diving regulation, and finally, the asbestos abatement regulation. So if you look at that and you ask the question, which of those apply to you or which of them apply to your clients? Now, it might be that all of them apply or some of them apply. And that's part of this process of identifying the dangers, hazards, and risks that Section 8 says. Okay, having said that, let's just move on. We see then that things like the first aid regulation, which is the general safety regulation, we remember that there used to be a level 1 course, level 1, 2, and 3 course, and then there was a course that came out that was a SETA accredited course, and now there is the QCTO course as well. Okay, so there we go.
Yeah, perfect.
But I just want to go further than that. That's weird. Okay, So I'm just going to use the keyboard now. The mouse is not functioning as it should. Having said that, you saw that I mentioned the ergonomics regulation. Now, some of you may or may not have read this ergonomics regulation, but if you're thinking of getting into training, this is a brilliant piece of legislation for you. I said, it's almost as if the Department of Employment and Labor on our side. And they wrote this piece of legislation and promulgated it round about the time that COVID came to the world. And at the same time, they published this ergonomics regulation. Now, have a look at this. I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight into it. First and foremost, the other section 13 spoke about every employee. And here the ergonomics regulation speaks about all employees. That's your market. All employees need ergonomic training. All. How many employees are there in South Africa? Then it says that the employer must conduct training before the placement of the employee. Isn't that great? I told you that they are on our side. And the employer must conduct refresher training. Now, that's in the ergonomics regulation. It's legislated. Now, if you're able to do that training, you're going to be able to obviously serve your clients' needs and or your employees' needs or the learners' needs, but also from a business point of view, it's a great, great idea. Then ergonomics regulation continues and it says that designers and manufacturers and importers and suppliers must also train their clients. So you can do that for and on behalf of these people. Now, go, wow, that's amazing. But don't I need to be accredited? Well, that would be nice. Let's quickly go through that. But there is no SETA accreditation for ergonomics. How about that? There is for ergonomic risk assessor, but not for the average employee. And there's no QCTO accreditation. Penny and I have served on a variety of organizations and committees and places like that, including at the beginning of the year for the first couple of months. We served on an HW SETA and a QCTO work group, I think they called it. And we were helping them write, a whole group of us were helping them write curriculum. But unfortunately, it's not been published yet. We're waiting. Okay, so you can't get accreditation from SETA anymore. And you can get accreditation from QCTO if they've got the equivalent. They don't call them unit standards, they call them codes, if the codes are published. And then you can get accreditation. That will provide you with more information if you're interested there. So have a look at those words, all prior refresher and training. Now, what if you don't? Well, there's a pretty hefty fine. And this fine applies to the employer, his employees, and you. How about that? It says in offences and penalties in the Occupational Health and Safety Act, any person who, so this means that you've got to have your house in order. If you're going to be doing occupational health and safety training, you need to make sure that it's in line with the Act. Because it says there, in any record, application, statement, or other document referred to in this Act, willfully furnishes information or makes a statement which is false. And we've come across this so often where people issue certificates and it's like, this is enough training. And we go, wait a minute, in terms of the law, it might not be. So please be aware of that. It's a 50,000 Rand fine currently. Now, I mentioned that Natalie and I were at the Saiosh conference in Cape Town just a little while ago, and that was in August, and we had the opportunity of meeting the Chief Inspector and the Inspector General. And the Inspector General spoke about the new legislation that's coming. Now, this piece of legislation is called the Amendment Bill, and they've been talking about it for a long time. And she alluded to the fact that this Amendment Bill is probably on the President's desk right now. Now, when that comes through, you are going to have an opportunity of a lifetime to actually run training programs around that legislation. So you can inform people, you can instruct people, you can train people around that. And here's a very good justification. The justification for getting to know the Occupational Health and Safety Act by its amendment bill will be the fines that can be levied, no longer 50,000, now 5 million Rand. What? And I had the opportunity of speaking to Mr. Tibuzana. He was the former chief inspector. And we were talking about this 5 million Rand just the other day. We were just talking about where, why, how come. And the reason for them putting this fine out there, 5 million Rand. And by the way, that's per offense. That's not just a one-off fine. If you've broken the law and you're convicted of 3 or 4 different offenses or charges, it could be 4 times 5 million. That's 20 million Rand. That's a wake-up call. Now, hey, I don't think it's going to happen that you're going to be fined personally. And if so, it was obviously going to be moderated. But this is something that clients need to know. And we all know about the incidents that have taken place in South Africa, like the George building collapse more recently, and the Greyton Drive that collapsed, the bridge collapsed there, and that building that collapsed in KwaZulu-Natal, and. There's so many places. But bearing in mind, this is criminal legislation. The employer, if he doesn't and cannot, or you or I, cannot pay the fine, may go to jail. That's that serious. Okay, now, I don't like frightening people and scaring people, but it is the reality. Okay, so ask the question, how many people, when it says every employee and all employees, how many people are regarded as employed in South Africa? There we got it. 16 million. Employees are self-employed. Every single one needs occupational health and safety training to a greater or lesser degree. Now, that's really quite something. Okay, and that's where we come in with our Black Friday offer. We say, right, if you want to set up in business, we'll start off this month by providing you with a 15% saving in the month of October. And you can chat to Natalie about it. We'll give you more information. And then when we go to November, we'll go to the normal standard 10% that is normally offered in the Black Friday month. So bear that in mind. This month is 15%, and next month is going to be 10%. And it means that you can become an intra health and safety training provider. Okay, more on that just now. So what we did is that we actually set up a business model some time ago. We've been doing this for over 10 years now. This is not new to us, and we're quite comfortable with the fact that we have over 100 licensees who are functioning profitably for their own account or within corporations and places like that. So that's the business model. I'm going to just break it down in a moment. And everything that I say here, or pretty much everything I say here, is covered in a document called the prospectus. Now, if you don't have a prospectus yet, you can ask Natalie for it, or she'll give you the URL. You can go and download the prospectus. And we strongly urge you to grab it, get it, print it, take a highlighter, go through it, draw up a list of questions, and as they say in legal talk, do your due diligence. Alrighty. Then we have these things called licenses. And a license is like a franchise, although it's not a franchise. In terms of the Consumer Protection Act, a franchise and a license is somewhat different. But we've got 5 different elements that you can have a look at. There's Platinum, Prime, Basic, Starter, and Fast Track. And I'm going to give you a little bit more information on each of those. Now, if you look at Platinum and Prime, you'll see a little star on the right-hand side, like a little square. And everything that is on that screen now, everything, the yellow background as well as the white background, all of that is available to Platinum and Prime. However, the white is not available to Basic, Starter, and Fast Track. And we'll break that down for you as well. You'll see that there's also a price difference when it comes to these different licenses. Firstly, for those of you that have never run a business before in your life, this is an opportunity to maybe set up and start your own business. And we have an operations manual. We have orientation sessions that take place on a monthly basis. We encourage you and your entire team to come to these sessions. And you'll find that we talk finance and admin and legal. We talk sales and marketing. We talk about course content. We talk about opportunities that are in the marketplace. And you'll find these orientation sessions very, very useful and very interesting. Then, of course, we've also got business mentoring. And the business mentoring means that you can spend some time with Penny, myself, or Natalie, just by making an appointment. We'll chat to you via WhatsApp, or sometimes, if Zoom is available, we'll do it via Zoom. And you can just ask Natalie to set up an appointment with either Penny or myself, and you maybe want a private presentation for your team. That's no problem at all. Happily do that. Okay, then of course, if you're setting up in business, you need to know something about marketing. And on this score here, Natalie has a degree from UCT in media and has worked for a number of advertising agencies. And she's going to tell you a little bit about what she does for our licensees.
Thanks so much. So in the Prime package, there is an online presence setup that's included, and that's coordinated by myself. We look at where you currently have an online presence, and if you don't have an online presence currently, then I set you up on a couple of platforms that I suggest that you do have a presence on. I provide you with an orientation, a recorded orientation in terms of how to best utilize those platforms. and how to get going with your initial digital marketing. So there's a lot of resources that are provided for you here. So if you have someone that's going to assist you, or if you're going to be doing it yourself, there's a lot that we give you so that you have a place to start from, because it can feel like there's a lot when it comes to digital marketing. But just by having an established presence, that is already going to give you so much in terms of getting your foot and your presence out there. Thanks. Back
Excellent.
to you.
Now, this offer, the online marketing presence, is included in the price of the Prime and the Platinum. So you don't have to pay extra for that. But if you aren't part of that license at this stage, or planning on just growing your business from starter to basic to Prime and so forth, you can still engage Natalie on this, and there is a small fee involved in that. Okay. Then, because we now have new people coming into the training world, this might be something that you're familiar with, or maybe there's just subjects that you're not familiar with. We have an e-learning platform. And the e-learning platform is something that you can take full advantage of. We've got 15 programs that you can go through, and or your team, your facilitators and so forth, and or your clients. You can actually put your clients through the e-learning platform. There is an arrangement where we share 50% of the profits with you. And that's quite nice. So you can earn money without actually having to be out in the marketplace, just by pointing people to and enrolling them on the e-learning platform. So there's the e-learning. And then, of course, there's the opportunity for you to sell to anybody that you feel needs this training program. And then, of course, we feel it's really important that you know the content. I'm going to give you an example in a moment of one of these courses. Okay. Now, Intra has training material. We've got 23 training programs that we've developed that are legal compliance training programs. These are not SACWA, SETA, NQF, QCTO. They're not Department of Employment approved or Department of Transport approved. These are general health and safety programs, which you will find very, very easy to run and certainly to generate income from. These are what we often call the low-hanging fruit. These are the popular programs, and we're adding to it all the time. I got word from one of our associates. She's currently working on the Working Confined Spaces program, and that's going to be added as number 24. So what do you get? These compliance programs are, firstly, legal liability. Call the program, the package, we call it ACT track. Then, of course, there's AIDS track. You go, why AIDS? I mean, we thought that was all over and done with. No, it's still there. It's obviously something that we need to be aware of. And we also say that this is something that you can add to your bundle of training that you're offering your client. Then we have asbestos track, which is the asbestos abatement regulations and the handling and use of asbestos. We have a program called the claims track, which is the COIDA, how to manage the claims. Then CONREGS, which is the construction regulation. I was looking at that today. And then COVID-19. You go, well, why COVID-19? Well, interestingly enough, currently, if you want to apply for QCTO accreditation, they want to know if your people have been trained. And COVID is still an issue. It's still an aspect of legislative requirement, maybe not a common thing in the marketplace. Okay. From there, dangerous goods, conveying dangerous goods by road. We also say that the dangers, hazards, and risks of electricity is something that we should share with everybody. Every single employee should know the fundamentals of working with electricity safely. And then environmental awareness, EnviroTrack, ErgoTrack, the ergonomics regulation, and the processes around it. Fall track, the fundamentals of fall arrest and rescue. Now, none of these programs, please note, are credit bearing. These are general knowledge. Remember we said to you, Section 8 said identify the dangers, hazards, and risks. Then it said provide information, instruction, and training. So nowhere does it say you have to be accredited, although we're going to strongly urge you to get your accreditation, and we'll guide you along that road. Then, of course, there's basic firefighting, an important one as well. But I'd like to just quickly stop and just go back to the ergonomics regulation. Remember what we'd had a look at? It said everybody, all people must be trained before, during, and after. And that is wonderful for you. You go, well, how do I do that? Well, there are a couple of ways. For one, you do the ergonomics workshop, the online workshop, the e-learning workshop, and then we've got a couple of videos that will show you of people that we've interviewed specific to our training material, but also specific to the regulation in South Africa. That means that you might not be a subject matter specialist by any stretch of the imagination, but you're not, shall I say, ignorant of what ergonomics is all about. And you can put, quite easily, you can put a talk together that you can deliver for clients for a fee. Okay, let's carry on. Then number 13 is the first track, which is our first aid program. Now, this is a non-general safety regulation 3 training program. We regard it as life skills training. And you probably know this, that employers have to appoint first aiders. Those first aiders need to be trained up in terms of general safety regulation 3. But what about the people that are not appointed as first aiders? And I've got a client currently who has 600 security guards. So there are the first aiders that must be trained in terms of the law. And then let's suggest that there's maybe 540 people that do not have to be trained in terms of the law. But the employer wants all security personnel to have basic first aid. You can do that if you've got a competency, or if you've got somebody that you can employ and use as a freelancer. Then, now this is not specific to occupational health and safety. We've got food safety, and this is for perishable food stores, and food hygiene. That's for the workers working in that environment that are handling and preparing the food. Then we've got the common health and safety rep. Some people call it a SHE rep. And we know it's the committee and the representatives. Then hazardous chemical substances or agents, the HIRA, hazard identification and risk assessment. And as you look at this list, you're probably seeing programs that you've either attended or would like to attend and or would like to present. So I'll show you a little bit about the training material in a moment. Then we've got Inductor, which is an awareness, a health and safety awareness. InvestTrack, which is an investigation of incidents and accidents. Noise Track, which is all about the noise legislation, the NIOH. We also recognize that there's supervision. Remember, it said the employer must inform, instruct, train, and supervise. And the last one is a tool track, which is working with hand tools. Sure. So there we go. It's a lot of training material over there, and there's hours and hours of material that is time that's gone into the preparation of this material. So I'm going to quickly share this with you. So I'm going to show you that with the Inductor, what we did was we actually developed this training program as an awareness program. It's short. It's about 2 to 3 hours. It's not a long-winded thing. It comes with a 20-minute video together with about a dozen or so short videos that you embed into your PowerPoint. And there's facilitator guides and learner guides and visuals and things like that. So this material is then ready to run. Most importantly, remember we saw that the employer must identify the precautionary measures to be taken. Now, those precautionary measures that you see there in Section 8 of the Act, you should actually be writing it into your training material. So we provide you with this material in such a way, it's in Word for Windows or PowerPoint, such a way that you can modify it and you can customize it. And that makes it a lot more risk specific and compliant. Now, legal compliance is an issue. We know that compliance by law has to take place. And I mentioned just previously a little bit about competency. We also know that you as a training organization or individual can issue certificates. You can issue a certificate of attendance or participation, but please note, you cannot issue a certificate of competency. That is at the behest of the regulation and of SACWA. And there's a process that you need to follow to go through that. Okay, speaking of SACWA, we've got over 50 training programs that were SACWA unit standard aligned. So in addition to the 23, here's another 50. And at the bottom of that little screen, you'll see of the sheet there, you'll see there are a number of other programs over there. That's QCTO training material that we've already received and got and developed. So you get a lot of training material from us. You don't have to develop it. Your responsibility would be familiarize yourself with it and then present it. Okay. Now, we know that there's been a lot of information around SACWA to SETA, SETA to QCTO, and all the confusion that's come with it. And I trust that you're following on that. But essentially what has happened is this, is that some time ago, there was a parliamentary meeting and they decided that they want to move away from SETA for these short courses. And these are typically 1, 2, 3 day courses. We're not colleges, we're not universities. And they then said, we're going to move all of this, the accreditation and the recognition and the registrations, going to move it to QCTO, the Quality Council for Trades and Occupations. Now, in theory, that's great. Can be done. In practice, it has been an absolute train smash. It's terrible in terms of the confusion that has taken place. And I've been part of the discussions around it to try and clear all of that up. And we've got videos on that, which you can watch to catch up on. Then they said all unit standards, and there were over 11,000 unit standards, would expire in June of last year. Then, of course, the marketplace shouted and screamed, and they then went back and said, okay, sorry, the unit standards will not expire, or some of the unit standards will be extended. That's the term. But if you don't have SETA accreditation, sorry, you're not going to get SETA accreditation. The SETAs are not accrediting people anymore. You have to go to the QCTO. Oh, well, that's fine. That's not, can be done. But QCTO has not replaced the unit standards. How about that? It's crazy. In any case, we'll talk you through all of this. One website that you can go to see if the unit standard has been extended, and you can see the URL over there. If you are accredited previously for that unit standard, you can check it out. Maybe you want to grab your phone and just take a photograph of the screen so that you can type in the URL, or alternatively, you can ask Natalie for it, and we can actually just pop it into the chat box. Natalie, do you still have this one?
I do. I put it in the chat box.
You are a star. Okay. So I get this question all the time. People say, in fact, this today, when do we see the QCTO coming on board with all the required occupational health and safety codes? That's what they're calling, not unit standards. I don't know. Goodness alone knows. They don't know. They said it would happen in 2024, but maybe 2025. Now they've extended certain things to 2026. So at this stage, I am of the opinion, so what? So what? Unless the law says accreditation, and remember I pointed out there's probably only about 4 places that the law says accreditation must take place prior to you running the training programs and issuing a certificate of competency. Unless that is the reality, all other occupational health and safety training is done under the Occupational Health and Safety Act and its regulations. So the opportunity is just marvelous for legal compliance training. And I'm not against credits and QCTO and SAQA and NQF, not at all. I'm just saying, right now, 16 million people need training in terms of occupational health and safety. And maybe this is something you want to do. Okay, which codes have been written so far? And you can get accreditation for from QCTO. There they are. Just very quickly, project management, health and safety officer, health and safety inspector, health and safety practitioner. Somebody said, what's the difference? We go, it's in the curriculum, but I'm not going to get into it now. But what I do want to point out to you is on the right-hand side, there's a column that says notional hours. And notional hours are critical to understand how they work so that you can work out the duration of the course. So the first one there, let's just take project management. It's 2,400 hours, notional hours. So notional hours are the amount of hours that are spent teaching, training, educating this person, the learner. Now, there's a ratio of 10 notional hours to each of these programs. So, for instance, you'll see 240 credits, 2,400 notional hours. That's the way they work the notional hours. So it's credits multiplied by 10. So we look at occupational health and safety officer, credits 120. And that will tell you how long this course takes. Please, you need to understand how the notional hours works. And it's normally about 30% of the notional hours that must be spent in the classroom, and the rest of the time must be spent by the learner doing exercises and practicals and things like that. Okay, then having said that, there's a lot more we can share on that and we'll share with you. Then you'll see that there are 3 first aid courses. Now, they replaced the level 1, 2, and 3 with unit standards. 119567 was one of them. And they had basic, and then primary, and then advanced. Now they've replaced them with QCTO courses, basic, intermediate, and advanced. Sure. All right. So having said that, we have the training material for basic and intermediate. So you can get up and running. If you want to do first aid training, that's great, fantastic. We'll show you what is going to be required. in a short while. Then you'll see that down at the bottom there, it says 12 HWC to QCTO skills programs. Now, we're waiting for those to be published. And they said that they'd be published in May, and then they said they'd be published in September. Now we've heard that's going to be published this month. We don't know. We actually don't know what's going on there. But having said that, we do know that there are going to be, at some other stage, new curricula written and or published, and that means that you can get accreditation for those. All right. So there, once again, is a website over there, the QCTO website, where you can see which programs, skills programs have been published already. It's worthwhile just taking a photograph of that screen, and then you just go and do your homework over there. Now, it's not only health and safety that's been published. There are hundreds of other programs that may very well be relevant to you. I was chatting to a gentleman this week sometime, or maybe it was late last week, and he was saying, I want to do health and safety training, but I also want to teach people about electricity. And I went, great. We've got the simple training material that simple, straightforward, easy to use. But you said to him, you need to go onto that URL and check to see what codes have been written for electricity. And I'm waiting for him to get back. Okay, now, from here onwards, there is a very important aspect. So you say, right, I now have an idea that I do want to get QCT accreditation. And what Penny's going to do, she's going to guide you. Penny developed a pack of documents called the Accredit Kit. And the Accredit Kit is literally 99.9% of all the documentation that you're going to need for your accreditation. And there's a lot. There's about 60 documents. It's super bureaucratic, but that's fine. She'll take you through the process in a workshop. And the next workshop is tomorrow. It's a QCTO DIY accreditation workshop, which means essentially you'll learn how to do it. You and your team can attend the workshop as a licensee. If you want to become a licensee, you just let Natalie know, and she will send you the link to this workshop tomorrow morning, and you can join us. And then you will find yourself in a position where you are empowered and you know how to do your own accreditation. Now, generally what would happen is that you would hand the accreditation process over to an accreditation consultant, and he or she would charge you 10, 15, 20, 30, 40,000 Rand for accreditation. We're saying that is a lot of money, and we would strongly urge you to do it yourself. And there are a couple of other good reasons when it comes to managing your own QCTO. Your accreditation needs to be in your hands, not in the hands of a stranger. And I say that respectfully because it's your profit, it's your processes. We worked with a wonderful lady, but she would have 100, 120 applicants at any one stage. So if you joined her now, where is your application going to be? At the bottom of the QCTO pile. So we say, do it yourself. All right. So then we also do other sessions as well. And these other sessions are held on a regular basis via Zoom. You can attend them. For those of you that are into AI, we recently did an introduction to AI. And I think on the 23rd, we're doing a masterclass on AI. So as a licensee, you would attend this for free. As a non-licensee, you would pay, because obviously there is a facilitator involved and she does some excellent work. And we are thoroughly enjoying starting to use AI in the health and safety training game. Now, finally, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you may have work that needs to be done in an area, geographical, or maybe a skill that you do not have competency, but your client says, please, I need some working at heights training, and it needs to take place in Krugersdorp or Kuruman. We've got a couple of people from Kuruman here today. And can you please help me? So the answer is yes, probably. We have people from literally Durbanville to Dubai that are licensees. We've got over 100 licensees on the African continent, and we're going to invite you to join that group as a licensee. So having said that, what I want to do is I want to just quickly run through what we've been saying. We've been saying that Platinum and Prime gets everything. Basic Starter and Fast Track get some of the things. So I'm going to ask Natalie just to quickly read this to you. Here's what you get with the Fast Track. Now, we've not spoken about that, but that's for people who want to become first aid instructors. Natalie, over to you.
Sure. So the Fast Track bundle, as Ken mentioned, that's for those who are wishing to present QCTO basic and intermediate emergency first aid responder training. It's quite a mouthful. And in this bundle, you get access to our QCTO DIY accreditation workshop. You get the training material, you get the right to co-brand and the use of our Intra logo. You also have the right to modify the material and the right to reproduce copies of the Intra learner materials. This bundle doesn't have a monthly license membership fee to it, so it's just a once-off cost.
So then you go through the process, you get your accreditation as a first aid training provider. Now, there are a couple of other things that you have to do, like Department of Employment and Labor application for approval, and Penny will share all of that information and documentation with you on her DIY workshop. Then we've got the starter bundle. Over to you, Nat.
The starter bundle is ideal for training providers who would like to build towards one of the other licenses like our basic or our prime, which is a bit more of a bigger investment, but it's a great place to get going. Initially, you get 6 intro original training materials. The right to reproduce learner material and the facilitator materials not included in this bundle. You'll get access to 6 e-learning courses, the right to resell our e-learning courses, and then the right to issue certificates of attendance for non-credit bearing training. This bundle also has no monthly license or membership fee, and you have the option to upgrade to from starter to basic or prime.
Thanks, Natalie. Okay, now basic.
So basic is also great for single branch training providers. It's a step up from the starter. You can start here to build towards the prime license. You get 22 intro original training
23,
material.
23.
Correction, 23 intro original training materials. And this will get added to. 2 trainers can attend the intro e-learning orientation. And when you complete all 15 e-learning courses, you'll receive a HASMAN certificate. You get access to the licensee orientation Zoom sessions. And this one does include a monthly license membership fee. And the basic fee may be deducted from the prime package when upgrading.
Thanks, Natalie. And now we talk about prime.
Okay, next breath, prime includes everything that was mentioned in the basic license. You'll receive our full suite of training material and any new or updated training material. You get access to our QCTO accreditation DIY workshops, and this does include the monthly license membership fee. You also get access to all of our downloadable PDF articles and resources, and you get the online marketing presence setup. And then we have our platinum license, which is great for multiple branch corporate companies. And in this package, they will get the right to reproduce the facilitator material and the right to use the intellectual property for their own e-learning platform. You'll be able to have 5 trainers attend the intro e-learning content orientation, and this does include the monthly license membership fee.
Great, Natalie, thank you so much. Managed to take a sip of water while you were chatting. And for those of you that have just joined us, just want to say welcome. Really, really nice to have you with us. We're going to be, we have recorded this, and we're going to be re-recording this session because we had a technical glitch earlier on. So I'll do it this afternoon and then make the video available to you on YouTube so that you've got all this information and you can share it with your employer or your employees, your learners, your partners, your colleagues, whoever's in the business with you, if you're an independent training provider. And you also have the opportunity of writing down questions, and we'll provide answers for you where possible. And you just set up an appointment with Natalie. Okay, so there you've seen the license options. We're going to quickly talk through the pricings. And if you have a look at the image over there, you'll see standard price, then the October, the 50% saving, and then it goes down to the November 10% saving. So obviously it's an incentive to get on board and get going as quickly as possible. The first one is the fast track. Now that's the fast track. It's the first aid training program, and the standard price is 11,890 Rand. In October, it's going to be 9,286.25. And in November, it's going to go up slightly to 9,832. Please notice that all these prices include VAT. And the fees, as you know, all investment in a business, they're tax deductible. Natalie, over to you.
The starter The standard price is 17,825. Our October price will be 15,151.25, and the November price will be 16,042.50.
Great. So I mentioned that all investment in a business is tax deductible. So one of the things that we're going to encourage you to do at some other stage is to register a PTY Limited, because that is required for the QCTO accreditation. If you want accreditation, you have to have a PTY Limited or be a registered NPO or NGO or something like that. So I know that Zanele, you were asking the question, where do you register? This is one of the areas that will definitely be guiding you through, slowly but surely helping you with that. Now, the basic, you'll see that there is an upfront fee and a monthly membership fee. So this in red is the upfront fee. Then in October, the 33,925 drops to 28,836. And in November, it climbs slightly to 30,532. We used to have an arrangement, a non-Black Friday arrangement, where we would actually break up the payments into different tranches. We're not doing that specifically for the Black Friday arrangement, but you can always chat to us if there is a cash flow challenge. Talk to us. Don't hesitate to just raise the point and say, I need some assistance. Natalie, over to you.
The Prime package has the upfront fee as well as a monthly membership fee, as mentioned. The upfront fee standard price is 56,925. In October, it will be 48,386.25. And then in November, it'll be slightly more at 51,232.50.
Great. And then the platinum. We used to call this the corporate, but now we're calling it platinum. And the price is dependent on the amount of employees within the organization. So let me give you an example. We have a number of manufacturing operations that have branches in different regions or different countries, and that's perfect. This is the platinum license fee for them. We have universities and government departments that are platinum members, and it starts at 114,000 Rand, 425. I don't have my new glasses on, so I can't see the numbers all that clearly. In October, that's going to be 97,261, and in November, it goes up to 102,982 Rand, and that includes VAT. There is a monthly license fee of 1,725 Rand. There is no Black Friday special on the license fee, and the reason we have a license fee, it's like a membership fee, subscription fee, if you like, is that we can continue to fund the research and development and the provision of additional training material and so forth. So now you've got the prices in your mind. Natalie will provide you with all of this in a written quotation if you ask her for it. She'll gladly send it to you from our accounting system, and you'll have that written quotation in hand. So from that, can I suggest you quickly take a photograph of that screen so that you can, if you're interested, you can say, I'm interested in starter, I'm interested in basic, I'm interested in prime, and you have a general idea. There's no commitment at this stage. Obviously, there's agreements and arrangements of that, as I said, terms and conditions, but it'll give you an idea as to where you can start to get going. We've got a couple of people that have said to me prior to us starting the recording is that they want to move away from employment into self-employment. And I completely understand that. And you can say which is the easiest place to start. The last thing I'll just mention here is that because the QCTO is and will, Lord willing, be publishing these new curriculum, we know that there's a rush for people to get accreditation from the QCTO. So from Prime onwards, I strongly suggest, it's probably the most practical way of doing it, become a Prime licensee and get your application in ASAP so that you can avoid some of the logjam. That, having said that, you will find that QCTO is very, very amenable. They are very helpful. We are grateful that the administrative side of the QCTO accreditation application has been, it's cleaned up a lot. It's not like the old SETA one. But again, there are thousands of people that want accreditation. So my suggestion is consider Prime. Okay, Natalie, any other concerns or considerations here?
Not from my side, all clear.
Great. Fantastic. And then lastly, if there's any of the training material that you'd like to get as an individual package, let's say, just go back to ergonomics. So I want the ergonomics program, or I want the inductor with the videos. You can then speak to Natalie about it. She'll provide you with a quotation. And the training material currently is 2,995 Rand. Sorry, my apologies, was 2,995. It goes down in October to 2,545.75, and in November it'll be 2,695. I mentioned that we have just brought on some additional training programs as well. We've just brought working with the hand tools. We call the program the Tool Track, and you can get that currently for 2,545 Rand, and that includes VAT. Okay, so in a nutshell, what we've been saying is that the legislation requires it. We see there's 16 million employees in South Africa. We've got Occupational Health and Safety Act and the regulations that tell us that training must take place. We see an opportunity for you if you wish to operate as a trainer, as an independent trainer, or within your organization, you want to provide training to your organization. And these opportunities are there. This October and November means that you can kickstart, and by 2025, you actually have a viable business that you can work with. So I'm going to suggest that when we finish this presentation, that we open the microphones and you can chat to us, you can ask questions. Hopefully you've written down a couple of questions as well, and we would then be able to get you on the road. So if you want to acquire or receive a quotation, all you need to do is you need to WhatsApp Natalie on 082 499 6911, 082 499 6911, and just WhatsApp her BF, Black Friday quote, and she will get back to you ASAP. I'm assuming that everybody registered. Natalie, you want to quickly talk about registration to make sure we've got everybody on?
No, it's fine. I'm sure we have everyone's details. They would have all had to register to get access. I have also dropped the link to our request to quote URL in the chat. So for those that are on live, you can also just click the URL.
Fantastic. And if you want Natalie's number, just quickly grab your phone, take a photograph of the screen, and you'll then be able to put it in your WhatsApp contact list, and you'll be able to contact her like that. She would appreciate it as well, so we can just establish contact. We sometimes have some freebies and we give away things as well. Okay, so it's been a real privilege to do this for you. Thank you kindly for joining us. At this stage, I'm going to ask you to switch on your microphones, switch on your cameras, and we can then start the process of answering all the questions you have. Having said that, I just want to quickly regain control here. There we go. So you can ask the question of yourself and of your client, which of these apply to you? I've got a keyboard problem here. That's really odd and unfortunate.